you said?
It was 2005, my first one. And like I said, I didn't have a portfolio. So when I came back to Maryland, because I exited a relationship that was whole wrapped up in the whole like first tattoo apprenticeship thing and education thing. I was learning how to be like a person with another person. I'm still learning relationship dynamics, to be honest. But I left that relationship. I headed back to Maryland, but I didn't have a portfolio. So I really didn't feel like I had learned a tattoo. And I also knew that my teacher didn't know everything as well. So I kind of had like a half experience. And I will say that I think that he withheld a lot of information, or he took over a lot of things. I don't know if he withheld. I think he took over a lot of aspects of the business that he wasn't willing to give control over to anyone else at that point, probably just because he wanted his business to run a certain way.
Yeah.
And to just give him the benefit of the doubt, because like I said, humility, I'm very opinionated. I'm very open and candid about that opinion. I don't mean to be that aggressive with it. And it does come from a place from caring, but I tend to hurt feelings very easily.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've had to learn, both in podcasting and just communicating with people. That's part of my problem with relating with people, is my emotional intelligence is probably not what it should be.
Well, it's like it's tough to say, but like this industry as a whole, I've learned in my very small time here is we're very blatant as far as like what is and isn't happening. Like I would watch, just to be that person, when you watch on TV, like pottery shows that are just like, competitions on pottery, like the judges are like, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful pot I've ever seen in my life. And then you switch over to like Ink Master and the judges are like, you expect me to judge this? Look at all these blown out lines you just did. And they're talking to a level 10 tat wizard.
Yeah.
And just like completely reaming them out. But that's how it is. And you have to have a certain amount of strength within yourself emotionally to be able to handle an apprenticeship, because not only are you, having a mentor that is teaching you like what to do, what not to do, but at the same time, you have to deal with yourself the majority of the time and being confident within yourself as well. But my apprenticeship was in 2017, and I actually showed Amy the shop that it started at, which is right down the street from my house. And so I started there in 2017. I heard about the apprenticeship from a friend who was the piercing apprentice there. She is like, hey man, they're looking for a tattoo apprentice. Like, you got to get in here like now. So I didn't have a car at the time. So I literally.
Just a question. What made you want to be a tattoo artist? Like in that respect? Because I just said I didn't want to be one. I just want to do my art. But
yeah, I knew I wanted to be an artist of some sort. So like the last few years of my high school, time, I was definitely delving into arts of some sort. Like I was thinking about like video animation. I was thinking about like nature photography. I was thinking about like video games animation, because I really like making characters and different characters and dress them up and whatnot. I was thinking about doing printmaking, like just anything. But what I knew I didn't want was a 9-to-5. I knew I didn't want a 9-to-5, and I knew that I wanted to make my own schedule, and I knew that I wanted to travel the world. So I know that the 95% of the things that I just mentioned, besides tattooing, take up, 60-hour work weeks, 80-hour work weeks of just sitting in front of, a Wacom tablet and doing whatever. So I kind of figured that wasn't for me. So tattooing became it, because I knew that I could pick up anytime I wanted, pack my things, and move somewhere else and find something like another position that would do me justice, even moving to a different country. But you have to have, a certain skill level, obviously, to do that, which is perfectly fine. So tattooing was definitely the thing. And so when she told me about that, I basically took whatever art that I found around me and paintings that I did, and like took crappy photos of them and printed them out at CVS. Then took the bus all the way over to the shop and walked in and was like, hi, this is what I want to do. So,
So you did a formal portfolio. See, I took the actual artwork
oh yeah,
in a portfolio case, and I was like,
I was
no.
nervous taking like, like a 2 foot tall canvas out of the bus. Like,
Good call.
so I did that, and they gave me the apprenticeship. But unfortunately, the gentleman that was initially apprenticing me just wasn't at the shop that often. He would be there one day, not there the next. Like, he would just throw me books and be like, do this. Or,
He made his own schedule.
yeah, pretty much. And then
Sorry, guys.
he had me, cleaning tubes, cleaning other people's stations, but he had a big problem with me talking to the other artists that were there as far as learning, but he himself was not, he was absent. So one of the artists that got hired there became my mentor because he kind of recognized what was happening and the mistreatment of it. And he was like, all right, I mean, I don't want an apprentice, but I feel bad. So I'll show you stuff if you're willing to put in effort. And at the time, I really didn't know how to draw anything, like nothing. He would like watch me draw, and it was just atrocious. And he was like, well, before you even start tattooing, you don't even know how to draw yet. So let's do that first. So thankfully, he taught me how to draw while at the same time teaching me how to make tattooable images and the bare fundamentals of, sanitation and biohazard materials and breakup setup, all that fun stuff. So then we left that shop, went to a different shop, where's the shop that I'm at now. And my apprenticeship lasted about 3 years. And then here we are. And I also, before I keep forgetting, I also want to note that all the questions that you guys have,
Yeah, they're on the side. I'm just checking them out.
we will answer
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, we just wanted to give you an introduction, but, kind of tell you why you're listening to us.
Yeah, but I see them. I promise.
And to put that in perspective too, I want everybody to know, like we started with, we're always learning. I don't claim to be an expert. I just want people to know that I'm a mutual person on a journey that has a lot of passion. Kira's the same. I recognize that in her right away. This kind of heat, this kind of overcaring personality that can be problematic in a lot of ways, but I think it's the reason why we are the artists that we are.
Yeah.
And why we love doing it on people too.
Well, I mean, I think a huge thing with your apprenticeship too, no matter what, because I've said it a whole bunch of times, the amount of times that we've been marketing this event, that every single apprenticeship is different. Like, my apprenticeship is different from Amy's apprenticeship is different from the person down the street's apprenticeship. Even though we're all tattooers, it's all going to be different. So asking one tattooer how to get an apprenticeship is just, you're going to get a vast answer. Because, for me in Massachusetts, there's a lot of laws and regulations and certificates that you have to get in order to become a tattoo artist, where if I went to the next state over, you don't need anything.
Yeah, Maryland, there's nothing.
You just go there, you just show up.
Yeah.
So no matter what, you should be looking at yourself as, as an artist. And that's what we're really going to try and showcase through this whole thing, is that we're going to tell you how to kind of prepare for one and where to look for one. But at the same time, it's going to be majority of, you have to look at yourself as an artist. Are you ready as an artist to take on this step? Because, the thing that I see that I hate seeing is that people will, and I'm speaking ages between 18 and 20, my generation, they'll go and buy machines online and start tattooing their friends without any sort of artistic background whatsoever. Instead of spending that $100 or $180 or whatever, how much they are, and buying a whole set of Prismacolors and just going at it, or a whole case of Liquitex acrylic paints and going at it, canvases, pencils, like that's what you should be investing in.
And beyond that, they're probably not investing in what I think, if at the bare minimum, if you were going to have licensure or regulation, it's about public safety.
Yeah.
So they're definitely not invested in the bloodborne pathogen awareness that we have, and cross-contamination and PPE materials.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is that I've been asked by parents, and this is another thing that, by the way, if there's any parents here that are like, how do I get my kid in tattooing? One, I don't think you should want to do that. It's not that tattooing is a bad profession. It's a great profession. It's an awesome profession. But but you wanting your kid to be a tattoo artist, or you overly taking the reins of your child's professional career life and doing it for them,
Absolutely.
not a great idea.
Absolutely.
Also, they're like, what can I buy them to like get them into it? And it's just like
Sketch
Kira said,
pads, canvases,
get them
personal
art
colors.
supplies. And
art supplies are expensive. They're
Right.
they're just as
It's very
expensive.
And that was my whole life, by the way, everyone. Like for every Christmas, for everything that I got, I had art supplies. I have so much art supplies that's coming out of my ears. Like I have a whole basement full of art supplies of repetitive like kinds. I'll forget that I have an ink set that I have so much. So like art supplies, sketch pads, paper, grassroots stuff. If they don't love sitting down and doing that shit all the time, they're not going to be a tattoo artist.
Absolutely.
They're not going to want to do it. If you give them those tools and they shut up for hours and they're out of your hair and they're just constantly wanting, I mean, I argued with my parents when we went to Italy and they wanted to do all the touristy stuff, which was cool and everything. All I wanted to do was sit there and do a painting. If you can go to a place like Italy and stand up to your family and say, absolutely not, come hell or high water, I am doing a fucking painting while I'm here. Sorry for cursing if that bothers anybody. But I like to curse. I'm a very like, I don't know. I like it. It's spicy. I am doing a painting and I sat there against everybody's approval and I did a painting for a day. And then they came back, they gloated. They're like, you missed so many things. I said, well, you missed so many things. And more than that, you don't have a painting to show for your time. Whereas I do, that I get to keep forever. This was a part of what I wanted to experience here.
Yeah. And so I've said it a bunch of times too, as far as, you know, making it very clear once again to the younger generation that's looking at, you know, Instagram all the time and Facebook all the time and are seeing tattooers like, yeah, we're pretty cool and everything. But, you know, I've said it to Amy that
I'm not cool.
The amount of time that we are tattooing compared to the amount of time that we're like drawing, doing art is just like, there's a vast difference.
Yeah.
So like I'm tattooing like this amount of time.
Yeah.
But I'm drawing and painting and doing colored pencils and homework like this amount of time. So that's the shift of mentality that needs to happen with these apprentices because, and I'm speaking from experience, I don't think that I didn't do this because I'm just saving you the trauma that I had to go through of my own mentality of my early years of not even being able to draw and being surrounded by these artists that were just pumping out just ridiculous compositions. I'm over here like, man, I can't even make a sphere.
And to circle back to something that you had said too, you had all these art notions of what you wanted to do. What I've loved about tattooing too, and what I've found later in my career is that tattooing incorporates a lot of diversified art forms in itself to where, you know, and people knowledge to where if you wanted to go into another career that is more involved in a different way, in tattooing, there is photography, there is design, there is graphic,
pigments,
there is the Instagram videographer, there is social media marketing, there is all these things that get wrapped into our profession that we just kind of do because it's a part of the job. It is a cool job. I'm not cool, but the job is cool. That's what I saw as it was foundational to anything else I wanted to do. And also it's intriguing enough to people that you catch a crowd because instead of doing your art on an object that's outside of you and hoping that it's going to sell, you're selling, you know, something on a person that they get to wear forever. So you're creating a crowd as you go so that if you do branch out later to other art, you already have a client list. You already have people who have invested their time, their body, their skin, their emotionality, their everything, their trust in you. And from there, you have a platform that you can go from and you can explore other art forms after that.
Absolutely.
That's the other reason why you keep investing in the art though.
Yeah. Because
that is the foundation of it all.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point to make. And another point about focusing on the art aspect of it is that, you know, your mentor's job is to teach you the tattooing part. That's your mentor's job.
Yes.
Your job is to be consistent with your artistry, to make it easier for him or her to teach you the tattooing. Because I'm not even joking, when they'll teach you like line work or shading or anything like that, they'll refer to other mediums. Like, okay, right now you're going to be doing like colored pencil circle motions right now. And if you're like, I don't know what that is, you're going to have a very tough time. Trust me, I know. And it's the same thing with like, okay, you know what a filbert brush is. That's what a curved mag is like. And they're like, well, what's a filbert brush?
Right.
And you're like, oh my God.
Right.
So if you make it less struggle for your mentor, you're going to be in the apprenticeship less. You're going to learn way more and absorb way more information that you're able to take on because you already know the basic fundamentals of these mediums.
Right.
And at the same time, you're going to shoot yourself into the sky farther than any other apprentice because you already have a background of knowledge before even entering the tattoo shop. And that's very important. I wish I knew that. And I'm lucky that I had a mentor that was able to take his time to teach me fundamentals of drawing to the point where I'm comfortable being in any medium. And at the same time, teach me how to tattoo with the fundamentals there as well. So it doesn't always happen that way. And if you really want to set yourself on the right path, focus on the artistic side of it rather than the tattooing side of it, because that's their job to teach you. Your job now is to be an artist.
Plus, I feel like there is so much access to folks because art as a profession, just like art as a teaching medium and everything like that, is something that has been choreographed a lot. The tattoo profession, I feel like, because it is about the art, but it's also about crafting a clientele and a style that's not necessarily artistic, but is about the kind of people you draw to you. That's a part of it. Art in itself, though, is something you can access now a lot more than you could before. Like I went to formal education to give me a lot of art, and I did a lot of seminars. I did as an 8-year-old kid, I would meet and do art classes. My parents would have me do art classes. I was doing like charcoal still lifes at like 8 years old with a whole group of adults around and shit. Like,
yeah, now that you mention that, I didn't, because the first thing my mentor had me buy was an iPad. He's like, you're gonna get an iPad. We're gonna learn some stuff. Like, right. So, and that wasn't accessible to you when you were, an apprentice. So that's already a vast difference of, taking on apprentices and putting them on a different path. And another connotation is teaching apprentices either with rotaries or coils. And that's a huge like conundrum that's happening right now in the industry, is that there's a big like upset of, apprentices learning off of rotaries. And you'd like, not gonna lie, like it's great, absolutely great to learn coils. I love coils. Like the boys that I listen to and are my mentors now, they're like, nah, man, rotaries. Let's teach you the techniques now, so that way when you want to play with coils, you already know the bare fundamentals of technique, and you can not stress yourself out over doing terrible tattoos. So,
well, and the freedom person in me. So an ideology of mine is very freedom and not a resilient, and it probably comes from a place of defensiveness, I'm going to be honest, but I like to picture things, if I had X removed, could I still operate?
Yeah.
And so that's the beautiful thing about knowing about coil machines and different kind of mechanics of what you do. Is that you have more tools, you have more arsenal to give, and you also have something to stand behind, as far as, because in the back of your mind constantly as you go throughout your career, you're going to sit there and go, am I worthy? There's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes around as you get older. But when you really track back the things that you know and the things that you've invested time in, you can stand there and feel good about where you are when you've invested time in certain things. I don't know the most about coils, but I started with them. I didn't have an option beyond starting with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once again, you didn't have rotaries. So.
Right. And I would say that it is per educator as to what list of tools you're going to start with. And it's also very based on like what your art style is.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that that's a good mentor is not necessarily going to default to everything that has ever been. I think they're going to look at you and kind of see what you need.
Yeah.
And everyone's different. There are some people who are just grassroots as hell. And I think that's just about building confidence. Like I said, it's about when you eventually arrive to the point of where you get to work on skin, you're super confident, you're super excited, you're not doubting yourself. I did that to my apprentice. I think I got her doing a lot of that stuff before she was really confident in herself about it. And I was like, it's fine, it'll be all right. And I think that if she had had more time investing in other things, which I honestly, guys, I just didn't have any interest in. I defaulted to the tools that were available to me. And I always have. I've always seen it as, you give me a tool, I'll figure it out and I'll make art with it. I don't care if I burn a stick, I'll start scratching something in the sand, or on the pavement. I'll make art out of anything you give me and I'll hack it.
Absolutely.
But there's people I feel like that get anxiety about the end product, or they get anxiety about just doing it. They get performance anxiety, especially if there's another person there, which is another thing. I'll say this about being in the beauty industry as a foundation for myself. One, always looking in mirrors. Like, mirroring is huge. And not only, I think, as an artist, as a creative, it's about being seen. It's about being prepared to be seen. It's about constantly evaluating yourself. It's about just trying not to be hypocritical as best as you can. I definitely have hypocrisy about me because I'm human, but like an effort to try and constantly confront. And it's the same in communication too. Mirroring techniques are super important. This is what you said. This is how I took it. Is that what you meant? Like, those kind of things within what I learned doing hair was so fundamental. And then the client evaluation, like cultivating my crowd, realizing client relationships, us sitting together and confronting both of our wants together and having to hear all these things and perform for somebody. I got over that so much faster than a lot of people, just because instead of having to do a tattoo a day, or, I guess at maximum, maybe like 5, if you're doing like little jobbers, I had like 10 clients a day some days. Yeah. And the heat of that, doing a 5-minute consultation, washing their hair, making sure you make their dreams happen so that they can have 4 to 6 weeks where they're excited and thrilled about their hair. It's a ready performance constantly. And I can't be a jerk, because my job was about client retention, not about a one-time performance. They're going to be back every 6 to 8 weeks because hair grows back. So you would think that makes it easier, but no, because I have to actually gain a clientele. My portfolio was my book, my clients, the people that if I moved from another hair salon, I had to bring a book of people. That's where my value was. So understanding client cultivation and that kind of thing was very essential. And I got over that a lot faster. That I think I kind of didn't really realize that within, educating someone else about like that anxiety that you get right before you're about. And I also had always sat and drawn. What's the past? Drawer. I always sat and drew, and people were always hovering around me, and they were always asking me questions. Like I couldn't get away from it if I had tried, so I just didn't try. And I had very critical parents, particularly my mother. So to have a constant critique, you should always want that. You should find a comfort in that space.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
That was one thing that my mentor had always said to me from like the beginning of time till, I could still hear it in my head now, is that, be consistent with your failure and understand that, to be a wise person, you have to be okay being shown as a fool first. Because, without that process of it, then, you're not going to really get far. And if you're not okay with criticism, if you're not okay with another artist coming up to you and be like, hey, man, you should probably do it this way. And then if you immediately get irate and, you're not going to go anywhere. It's going to stunt your growth so far. It's going to, potentially ruin your career if that's mentality that you consistently have. Just be okay knowing like, hey man, I'm not great. Like I'm not great.
I'm not.
I'm not great.
I mean, maybe some people think I'm great, but that's the
Yeah,
thing, right?
let
Art is
them-
subjective.
Yeah, let them think that.
Yeah, that's
And
the
then
point.
I'll be over here be like, oh,
Right.
thank you, but I'm still
I'm
growing.
gonna have that critic. And that's the thing, is when you get enough critique and when you become comfortable in a space of critique, then it's a program that kind of runs in through your own mind. So you can start
Yeah.
answering these questions for yourself. And then you'll graduate to higher critics, and
Yeah.
you'll seek out people that you at the very least perceive as better than you. And there are a lot of things that people are better at, that you can go to if like you want to diversify your talent, you want to learn something or a technique specific, then you can go and you can ask those questions and resubmit yourself. And then again, drill in your mind, reprogram, heighten the judge, your internal judge that you have. And that's super important. If you walk into it going like, I don't want to be judged, I just want to do my art for me. Well, do your art for you then. Don't be a tattoo artist.
Because you're doing your work for everybody.
Yeah, it's a commercial profession, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And understand that, once again, tattooing isn't always the end result. And truthfully, and we can kind of segment into this, that, your body's going to start breaking down after a while. Like
yeah, we were going over posture the whole time.
Yeah, I remember like the first tattoo I did when I was licensed, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do like this 9-hour leg. I can't wait. And I sat there for the whole like 10 hours just tattooing away. And I went home and I was like, I didn't know my elbows could hurt this bad. I didn't know like all in here could hurt so bad, like my shoulders, like my posture, your neck, your wrists, your fingers, like they're going to break down on you after a while. So unfortunately, tattooing can't always be the retirement goal of it. You should build yourself as an artist so that way you can sell paintings, sell colored pencil portraits, pet portraits, family portraits, build yourself as a digital artist, t-shirts. Like that is your end result, is your marketing, is your name as an artist, not so much as a tattooer. Tattooers, are unfortunately like a young man's game, and the people that are in there that have been doing it for decades and decades are going to tell you as well, like, man, this is getting rough.
Well, and you should think about how you want to get old within it. I think it's really good to forecast.
And there's many other things you can do in it besides tattooing. Like
you can teach,
building,
you can machine build, you can own a studio. You can,
pigments.
And that's the thing, is that like you can dreamscape and craft other things within the profession that escalate as you go on. And it's also important to be smart at first, because as this profession stands, there's lots of different ways that people run their studios, but in a whole, there's very few shops that offer paid time off, sick pay, benefits,
W2s.
W2s, like Social Security, like all these things that
exist, but it's rare.
When you decide, as you choose one thing, you give up another. And that's always how energy works in this world.
Yes.
You sacrifice one for the other. If you don't want a 9-to-5 job, there is something there that you have to be very aware of, the business side of it too, and make sure you're savvy. Like I said, going into my first apprenticeship, I didn't ask a lot of questions that I should have around the business to then keep me there long term. Once those things became in focus, I was like, oh, no, I can't stay here. Now, had I asked those questions right up front, I probably could have stayed for a very long time and created a relationship with that studio. But once I became aware of the dynamic within that, I was like, oh no, I can't stay here.
Yeah.
And it hurt a lot of feelings, because everybody had become attached. And that was something I was saying to Kira, if I could recommend a book, it's not about tattooing. It's not about art. It's about communication. And there's a little bit of like a spiritual, I wouldn't say it's like religious. There's like a spiritual observance in there that comes from like an Aztec philosophy of looking at things. But it's called The Four Agreements. It's really, really good. And it teaches you, I feel like, the best. And there's also another one that's like the Fifth Agreement, but that he wrote as well. His name is Don Miguel Ruiz. And it teaches, I think, a really good mindset about how to have really good client relationships. That mirroring technique is spoken of. I mean, he calls it the smoky mirror, but it's basically like what divides you between another person and making sure that you get clear. One of the biggest ones in there, at least that I've found within a challenge of my apprentice, who's like, I think she's like 8 years younger than me. So she's like your generation.
Yeah.
Was that she took a lot personally. And we talked about that earlier, was that like you really can't take it personally. I know it's personal.
It's hard to not take it personally.
It's
you want to
hard as
defend your
mentor.
artwork.
Right.
You want to, but it's that time and place.
Yes.
Time and place. Right in front of your mentor or right in front of somebody that's generally wanting to help you and guide you into a better perspective. Not the time.
Right.
Not the time. And you probably won't get their help again, which is not a good thing either.
Yeah.
And I think that's what technology does now for apprentices, that they give, the younger generation such a high ego before even entering an apprenticeship of just like, yeah, man, I'm the shit. I can make like maybe a straight line. That's about it. But I'm like the best at tattooing and I don't need your help. I don't need anybody's help. I just need you to give me the machine and license me, I think. So,
I think.
like I'll just post on Instagram and I get like 400 likes. Like I don't understand why you think I'm bad at this. That's the rough part about this whole generation. And Instagram and Facebook and everything like that, they have their benefits in this industry. They really do. Like it's the way to network yourself when you're ready. It's the way to meet other artists. It's how I've traveled within this past year alone to so many different states, so many different people, and learned so many different things on my own dime, just because I know that I am not where I want to be and I never will be until I die. So that's
the dream anyway.
Yeah, that's, never stop understanding that you're always going to be growing. You're always going to be learning. And the minute that you tell yourself, all right, I'm good, I think I'm good, is when you stop your growth. Yeah. And that is not the point of this industry. Is you're consistently growing. And you should
love it, man.
Yeah.
Like, why would you choose? I just don't understand anybody who would choose this as a profession without a sincere joy and love for it, because it's really hard, folks. Like it's really fucking hard.
And absolutely.
Go ahead.
And I think it's important to note too what it means to put yourself out there too early on social media. On understanding that social media doesn't mean, as a tattooer and an artist, it doesn't mean that I'm drawing an image, finalizing it, putting it on Instagram, and that's how I do it. No. It's the same principle as tattooing. The amount of work that I do and the amount of work that I put on social media, vastly different. Like I'm drawing all the time, napkins at the bar, just paper laying around at my day job that I do on scrap pieces of paper. That's not going on Instagram. That's going in the trash, in the recycling, to this stranger. Why? Because it doesn't matter. Well, the social media part shouldn't matter so much, only for marketing yourself for your style and what you want to do for tattoos and how you want to be as an artist.
Well, and in the beginning, going back to apprenticeship, I feel like there is a phase of how you utilize technology. So you said like putting yourself out there too early. I feel like it's kind of like a temperance thing. So if you are like me, my apprenticeship is in podcasting. So right now. So my whole thing with podcasting is crafting a story where I'm sharing my failures and I'm sharing the story as I go and letting people, my portfolio online is something where I'm showing people a progression because it's the nature of the thing that I'm putting out. Whereas when it comes to apprenticeship in the beginning, you need to look at your Instagram or the things that you put online as something that when you hit up a tattoo studio or a tattoo artist to ask for an apprenticeship, what's out there has been choreographed enough in the beginning so that you have really good optics. Like put up your best work. If there is
what represents you,
100 things that you have done, pick out the best 10.
Yeah.
and put those out there, because that's going to be what zings somebody. Because the last thing that somebody wants to ever hear with a portfolio is, why did you put this in here? And
Yeah.
if you don't have a good answer, you're like, oh, I was just filling space. That's not an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Put in the things that you're like, oh, I feel like it really showcased my ability to use X, or
Yeah.
do this, or showcase this. And this is another facet of my diversification of what I can do. And segregate it too. Like, I feel like, you know, so this is a whole thing in the tattoo industry is like, you know, I have a whole modeling page. I have a podcast page. I have my tattoo page, and I have a studio page. I have 4 different Instagram accounts with 4 different objectives and observations. So I think you have to be decisive, because I like to see like maybe a photo of a person when they have a portfolio page. Like, I kind of like to see a little bit of their humanity and a little bit of their style and them. But I also want to see the majority. If it's an art page, I want art. I want art, over.
Seal.
Yes. I think that when you get older within it, it becomes something that's both showcasing a little bit of you and a little bit of your art, just because people end up buying your brand, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, nobody gives a fuck about who you are. They want to know that you're a good artist. They'll meet you. They'll decide upon meeting you whether or not they like your vibe or whatever. But just seeing a photo or just whatever, you got to be really careful about what kind of things you're branding about yourself right up front. And if what you want to be known for is your art, make sure that's the thing that people see.
Yeah. And do you think, since you've had apprentices and you have one now, would you rather, if, you know, like a young artist, like an 18-year-old came up to you in your shop, would you rather them have a digital portfolio or a hand portfolio with a binder and like laminates? And what would you want to see in there? Digital work, like everything?
You know, the digital, I'm not so attached to. I want to see a little bit of digital. I want to see that they're not adverse to the tools. I want to see that they're willing to take on those tool sets and kind of geek out about it and explore them. But that's just like another medium to me.
Yeah.
I want to see a diverse medium portfolio of where you have taken on art as a passion, as a pursuit. My teacher used to always say, you should be process oriented and not product bound.
Yes.
So when I see something, I want to see completed works. Don't show your sketches.
No work in progress. No sketches.
No work in progress. Make it clean, make it well presented, make it congruent. You know, if you are going to bring original art pieces, put it in a nice like container so that you're not like coming with things.
Yep.
Yeah, like thrown
Laminate
over your
sheets are
shoulder.
awesome. Exactly.
Like, make sure you're presenting it with care.
Yeah.
I like to see that there is I like seeing, for myself, this is just myself, I like to see a consistent hand in it. So not that there's a style, but that I can see that this person has a signature before they even know they have one, like a way of seeing things that I feel like could be very them. When I took on my apprentice, I actually bought her art before. She was a full-fledged artist doing art shows. She taught art. She has a master's in teaching, and she taught middle school art as an art teacher. So she had a super rich portfolio, and she had this awesome style that I saw was very unique, and I saw I could give her a profession in art, and she could just go with it. Not that I had any attachment to what she did with that, but I saw the passion that she was already trying to sell her art. She was already moving towards those things. So when you confront that world already, you learn, have a clean portfolio, have something that kind of showcases you, know how to talk about your art. It's more than just what I'm seeing. It's what I'm hearing from the person. Like if I ask a question, do they even know how to talk about what they do? Because
Yes.
they got to be able to talk about it. Like, how are you going to sell yourself
With
if you don't,
terms.
right? If you don't know how to talk about what you do, and you don't know how to catch people to your vibe, if you understand what you're doing and how to talk about it, I don't even care if it's bullshit. You know, like people buy because of an emotional connection to something.
Mhm.
So if you can catch them to your vibe and you can choreograph how you speak about what you do, then that's really essential too. Making eye contact, having a good handshake, you know, not being caged, you know, like all of those things. That's what I look for in a person. Are they like, yes, I'm here? Like, are they putting things on the wall? Are they kind of standing out as a person just in general because they're asking for the universe to bestow on them something that they're really trying to put out there? So it's the whole package really.
Yeah.
Like, but like you said, I don't want to see half-ass work. I don't
Yeah.
want to see your practice. That's for you.
And
That's
if
fine.
you don't have enough work to put in there
Yes.
and all you have is sketches, then you're not ready for an
No.
apprenticeship.
No.
You're not ready. It's a tough thing to say that, but you have to admit it to yourself because you're just going to set yourself up for some grave failure. And so if you are ready for a portfolio, you do have strong work in there, you are ready to go, got the thing pat pending, got your name slapped on it. Nowadays, what I did, I was a little easy because I got word of mouth. So like a friend of mine was just there. So the way that I got into the industry was, pretty easy, but it's not that easy for others, especially if you don't live in such a dense area like I do, where you could spit at the next shop from one shop to the other. So for those people that don't have a lot of shops in their town, I think it'd be best to just either get tattooed by other shops,
Yes.
build relationships before
Yes.
even showing your artwork.
Yes.
Hey, can I change your trash?
Yes.
Yeah, man. If any apprentice came in my later years and was just like, hey, man, can I just change your trash? I'd be like, yeah, you can change my trash. Yeah, you can sweep my floor too. And then the more you do that, the more you come back, I'd be like, oh, they actually are like wanting this.
Yeah.
So I might actually put my time and effort into it, because you have to think about it this way. When you go to a tattooer that's been tattooing for 12 years, 15 years, 20 years, and you want to learn off of them, you have to understand that they are now considering taking the last 12 years of blood, sweat, and tears and just giving it to you. So you have to understand their perspective of this, and they're not always going to be like, yeah, man, like, let's do this today. You barely tried. Let's do this. You have to show effort and persistence through this industry to get anywhere. But the key is that the effort and persistence is all it takes, really. Like,
no, it's true. And I think that's a good way. I mean, you bringing up to get tattooed too, because one, you're learning about yourself by getting tattooed. I know that was in my second apprenticeship, a point that kind of got me in the door, is that I went in for an apprenticeship. I didn't get it right away, just so everybody knows. Like, he wasn't in a position where he was ready to hire somebody. He was, I mean, in fact, most of my former mentor's life, he really didn't like the idea of teaching somebody. I feel like it was something that he really wasn't so keen on.
That old school mentality too, of like, this is mine, nobody else's, how dare you be in my industry, kind of thing.
I mean, I think it was less that, and I think it was just like, it's a lot. It's a lot of energy. Like, I think
having an apprentice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's like having a child that's at work with you all the time.
And I think it's about an accountability thing of wanting to make sure. I think for him, it was less of a denial kind of thing and of access, and more of just like, because he was a very, I think, accountable person. I think he didn't like to overpromise and underdeliver. So I think it was more that, and he had a full shop at that point. And I feel like he was at a place where, you know, it just wasn't something he could see a need to be fulfilled. So why would he?
Yes.
And that's the other part of going to get tattooed, is that if in that space it comes out that you're an artist and you guys start trading and you start meeting each other, it's less of an asking and more of them being like, hey man, you're pretty dope. I kind of like you. Like, you know, you want to hang out more, like you want to come back. Let me see your art.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's what ended up happening is I came in with a portfolio. I I hit him up on Facebook because his front end person at the time was just trying to friend request everybody possible. Actually, it was MySpace. That's how long ago it was. It was
I was
MySpace.
going to say, I don't think Facebook was a thing.
No, it was MySpace. They were just
top 10 friends.
Well, MySpace, like Facebook, has a maximum amount of friend requests you could do. So they would max it out every day. And I said, oh my God, Glen Burnie. I've never even been to Glen Burnie in Maryland. It was like 45 minutes away. And I was like, there's a tattoo shop. And I had asked all the places locally and not really come up with anything. And I was like, I'm going to just contact this person. 2 weeks later, he hit me back. He was like, yeah, I'd love to, see your portfolio. I got lost on the way. He was like, dude, like this is before, it was like when I had MapQuest directions and GPS was really not good when it was in the inner city. Like it could get you mostly there, but like you kind of fucked when now it like tells you prepare for the next turn. I'm like, really? Who's not prepared for the next turn? You just told me 10 times to turn here. So I'm like, really, you need this many prompts? But attention, I guess, was different. So I got lost there. I showed him my portfolio. He's like, your work's really good. I really like it, but we don't need anybody. So it was at that point that I started looking at his art, and I was looking at the other people there, and I was like, you know what? I really want. And I gave him a design that I gave him, and he did them on my arms, but he did them with his style. We went through it a little bit, that I was a little attached to how he did certain things. And I let him kind of do it, but I had a few requests that he kind of looked at me and he was like, really?
Yeah.
But I got tattooed by him, and I think that meant a lot to him, that I was willing to wear his piece, and that I really saw the talent that he had right away, that I was like, yeah, I'm willing to wear you as
Absolutely.
well. So I think that matters a lot when you're asking somebody to mentor you, is, are you willing to wear their art? My apprentice, I offered. I offered an apprenticeship to her because she was my client for like 5 years before.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah,
because like it's easy, and once again, if you have like one shop in your town, it's hard to pick and choose your mentor because you have very few to choose from. But at the same time, you shouldn't just settle for the first mentor that says, yeah, I'll take you on.
Yeah,
because that may land you in some very horrible situations and some very uncomfortable situations, and hazing and abusing, and that does all exist because there's no unionizing for tattoo apprentices. It doesn't exist. It's very important to choose your mentor for what's best for you. And then I'm not saying that, I just want to do black and gray, so I'm going to go after a black and gray artist. Like, you should, in your beginning, be pretty well-rounded, but as far as ethics go, as far as morality goes, as far as the way they operate as a person outside of their artistic value, okay, that is more important. And when I was in the beginning of my apprenticeship, it's important that you said that to get tattooed, because when
you said it. I didn't. I just.
Well, getting tattooed is important.
I agreed with you.
But I would travel to New York for my birthday with my mother, and I told my mom, I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, Megan Massacre's shop is here. We have to go. Like, we have to go, Mom. So she's like, okay, I guess. And when we were there, Jimmy Snaz was actually guest spotting there, and this was before his Inkmaster time. So I had him do this rat that's on me, and there I asked him a whole bunch of questions. Like, what are you using? How do you do that? Why do you do that? Like, where you do that from? Why is that there? Kind of thing. And he wasn't annoyed at all. He was very heightened by the inspiration that I have, and the persistence and effort that I'm making to really try and find the answers to these questions. It's the same thing with my plague doctor. That was a tattoo artist at my first convention that I went to, that I just visited at, and I only had a very minimal amount of money, and it was my last day. But because I showed such enthusiasm, he was like, hey, you know what? Yeah, come back at this time. If I'm not tattooing anybody, sure. So, and we had great conversations then, and I still talk to him to this day, and he's like one of the greatest people ever. And this is how you can make connections, make relationships with artists. It's not just customer relationships with your clients.
Right.
it's a relationship with all of your artists that you're going to be calling family one day. Like it's going to be these people who are going to be influencing you, helping you, guest spotting you, traveling with you.
It's just a really small world.
Yeah,
guys.
absolutely. And technology,
yeah.
there's no excuse to not do it. There's no excuse to not network as far as that goes.
But as much as there is so much of it, just recognize that it's a small world. Like
Yes.
it seems bigger to us because it's what we inundate ourselves with.
Yeah.
But I was always told, do not burn bridges.
Yes.
And there's a lot to that. As personal as this gets, as a lot of, you know, situations can arise, I feel like it's important to always hang in the back of your mind. You never know where you're going to be, and you never know where they're going to be. And we're all having to work together once, especially if we go to conventions and stuff, which is a big part of our life. And if you want to do guest spots and whatever, you know, your relationships is what lends to that access later. And if you wreck those relationships, it can limit you so much to the access that you have later.
Yes.
So try not to burn too many bridges.
And the worst thing you can do in that aspect is if, you know, an artist who, let's say you're a color artist, right? And a black and gray artist comes up to you at a convention or whatever you're doing, and they'd be like, okay, man, like you're doing a pet, I'm doing a pet, like why don't we do like something together? Like why don't we do something cool together? And then if you say something along the lines of, no, man, I already know how to do that.
Oh,
that's a huge phrase that happens more often than not. I already know how to do that, period. So like, or I know how to do that, or I already know how that works.
Why would I do that?
You're already shutting yourself out for new information. Like you're already stopping yourself, because saying you already know that guarantees me you don't know that.
Well, what are you going to do when somebody wants, I mean, just thinking about the kind of tattoos people get, like a plague doctor.
Yeah.
You know, how many have been done? How many will you do? How many, like elephants?
Yeah.
Octopi, freaking fairies. How many you're going to have to do and still romance it and keep the joy of that experience alive within the requests that you get from your clients.
Yeah,
so it's about a willingness to constantly recommit to a new experience.
Yes. And when you should know as an artist when to go back to your basic fundamentals. Basic fundamentals are not just for younger artists or artists that are just learning. They're all the time. Like even like masters still have to sit back sometimes and be like, you know what, I think I need to go back to my fundamentals and re-up this because I'm seeing some inconsistencies.
Yeah.
This is just an egotistical game that you are playing with yourself, saying like, oh, I don't want to learn spheres. I want to learn how to make a face. Well, you can't learn how to make a face without learning how to make a sphere, sweetheart. Let me tell you.
There's lots of spheres.
Lots of spheres.
Lots of them.
Like so many triangles. It's insane. So without learning that, you're actually making the journey much worse for yourself.
Right.
Because if you learn those basic fundamentals, then learning how to make a face, you're like, oh, that's so easy.
Well, and going back to the 4 agreements, one of the agreements is to never assume. And so a big part of foundational art is, okay, you don't assume just based on a past experience of drawing something that it's going to be like that.
Yeah.
And a big thing about if you're drawing from reality, or at least as far as training is involved, they have you draw a lot from reality, as opposed to a picture, as opposed to something that has already been drawn before, because then that's somebody else's eye and somebody else's experience and choices. It's about looking. Like you should look at the object as much, if not more, than you look at your picture, your like what you're actually drawing. Like your hand should be moving while you're still looking.
Yeah.
Like this,
but
because you don't make those assumptions.
Absolutely.
And that's a big thing, is that you should be constantly looking and reacting, and that is a big part of that. Do not make assumptions. Don't stay here and then start getting into all this stuff that isn't in front of you, because what you're working from them is a preconceived notion in your mind.
And that's a huge tattooable comment too, because when you're not making the stencil exactly what you see, then it's just like, well, it's right in front of you. Why didn't you just look up?
Yeah.
Just commit to the stencil.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's more like going into like the tattooing aspects of it. But it's important to also state that when going off of reference, you shouldn't always be manipulated by your reference. It's just a reference. It's not the exact image unless you are doing a photocopy, realism, portrait, pet portrait, whatever. But at obviously your apprentice stage, you're not going to be doing that for a while.
Well, and there's a thing about in the digital age. So a big thing with tattoo artists is that tracing is involved because there is a hand mobility that's in it, but you don't want to default to tracing. It will be something that will be an expedition tool later, and it is a technique in itself as a control thing. However, with digital media, you have the ability to scrap a lot of tangible things like tracing paper and things like that. You can layer on top of things digitally, and you can do that. And it's a very tempting thing to trace most things that you do. Going back to reinventing, fundamentals, all that stuff. They have you look at reference and draw. You're not tracing. You're exercising your ability to draw what's in front of you and combine references, because a big thing that happens in the digital age is that people regurgitate the same fucking image over and over again because they look at a Google search and they look at the first 10 things that are there and they pick this. If I see that goddamn Poseidon one more time, I'm going to scream.
It's funny. I've had a couple clients these past couple weeks. They all don't know each other, but they all have sent me the same butterfly reference. They're like, I want this. And I'm like, I've done that.
Right. I think we could find something else to do with this butterfly that's unique. That's yours.
That's a super important thing. But I think, so we definitely went over like, the mentalities process.
Keep us on track, please.
Of the beginning parts of apprenticeships, and we went over, the portfolios. But once the apprentice is actually in the door and here, and you got it, congratulations, you did it. You got the apprenticeship. Does not stop there. No. It's just the beginning. And even when you graduate that apprenticeship, it's a new beginning. Like this is another, like this isn't it. You just started. So once you are actually in your apprenticeship, what is advice we can give these apprentices as far as surviving the apprenticeship, mentality in this apprenticeship, what to focus on, and how to make it out alive,
Okay, so a lot of things I'm telling you guys, not because I'm good at them, but because I can give advice from a place of lacking. Again, I needed humility. I have a problem with listening as opposed to speaking. You can be assumed a fool, or you can be proven one. And a great way to be proven one is to open your face. So with the question that what is a filbert brush, for example, as an observance, you can Google that now. So I would say that it would behoove you to maybe cache some of the things that you're hearing. And once your mentor is done speaking, listen intently, tick some things that are like questions in your mind. Maybe do a little research on your own to kind of fill it out, and then come back with some informed questions to your mentor to go, oh, this person did their own work. I mean, I had a point with my mentor where I asked him where the Target was, and it was literally right across the street. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? I'm going to fire you. I'm going to fire you. Are you for real? I was like, dude, I didn't look up. And he's like, well, I need you to look up. I need you to be aware. What is the Google? So it's like, I need you to answer some of these questions for yourself and come back to me informed. And you cannot camp your entire knowledge into me, because this is your journey. I need you to become a person who can teach yourself eventually and answer your own questions. And please don't come at me. Not that they're stupid questions, but they're just knee-jerk yourself. Yeah, they're knee-jerk questions. So I would say that as advice. Definitely job 101 kind of stuff. Like I said to Kier before we started, big thing is do not fuck around. With schedule, with anything. Like if you have a time you're supposed to be there, do not be late. The first 3 months, They don't know you. You don't know them. You want to shine your ass off. Any single job that you go to. If
Show them
you're
you
late,
want it.
yeah. If you're
Show them you
late,
want it.
if you're lazy, if you bulk at doing anything,
Half-ass.
you're on probation at any job for the first 3 months. Most will not offer you benefits past 6 months or anything like that. So I'd say, think about it in terms of that. You have to prove yourself within that timeline and make sure that you're very adamant about showing everything that you're coming with, everything that you're going to be, everything that you hope to be, and embrace the suck of it. Like the Marines say, if it sucks, embrace it, because it's good. It's okay. Now, I think we're going to get to the questions eventually, but in terms of hazing, the one thing I can say to people, and I was trying to quantify it with Kira before we started, I'd say the distinguishing factor in hazing is as a mentor.
Mentor perspective now.
Right. If it's something that I am willing to lose you as and do it, and it's hard, I would rather do that than have you go out into the world lacking the skill or this perspective that I'm trying to give you. Like, if it's worth losing you over, because you're also facilitating things for me as my apprentice. Like, you're doing dirty work, you're doing a lot of things, you're doing a lot of grunt stuff, you're learning a bunch of things. Like, you can do my setup, you could answer phone calls, like so many facets of the business aspect of it, you're facilitating. So you matter to me. And I wouldn't take on an apprentice if I didn't care. Let me just say about legacy. So understand that I think that if your mentor is a kind of person that through the way that they teach you and handle you, it's very clear that they care about legacy and about what they're giving you and what you're going to potentially leave their shop with as a knowledge base. If they feel good about that as a reflection, that's great. Now, if it's something, and I also think that you should be able to have a dialogue. In the times where I know hazed, I pushed back. And within pushing back, one, I found out a lot about myself. Two, it's about my own boundaries and everything, but I was able to have a dialogue and it never happened again. So I'd say that if you're able to have a dialogue about it and kind of squash it, or at least come to an agreement as to why this was done, that kind of distinguishes it between hazy. But if you're like, no, you're mine, shut up, fucking do what I say, don't talk to anybody else, don't look up whatever.
Yeah.
You're not a dog, and I wouldn't even treat a dog that way.
That's something we also have to very much mention before I put in my input as far as what you should be as work ethic wise as an apprentice, is that, okay, worst case scenario, you get in, you think that this mentor is going to teach you everything, and you get in there, and 6 months down the line, you realize that this is very abusive. Okay, there's a fine line of hazing, there's a fine line of teaching to absolute abuse and neglect, and not going to get you any further. It's nothing but detrimental to your mental health and well-being. This industry is very important to you, and you know that you want to do this, you have the drive, you have the effort, that's there, but this person is just not teaching you the way that you need to, or at the same time abusing you absolutely to the extent. Okay, we're both telling you right now, looking in the camera, get out of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not the only mentor that is going to teach you, first of all. Second of all, this is not the only place that is going to be best for you. It's going to do nothing but hurt your career, hurt you mentally, and give you a lot of trauma that you're never going to come back from.
We said ego mastery, not ego crippling.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself in a place where somebody is clearly lessening your shine so that they can be bigger in the room.
Or your apprenticeship is going on 4 years and you're like, I'm not learning anything.
Right.
Get out.
Get out.
Get out, please.
Yeah. And that is a thing. And we were asked that too about timelines. That's a very independent thing that is per person. But that's a big thing to see, is that, if you feel within yourself, if you see no progress and you see no assimilation, if you're not feeling at least a progression in where you're feeling within a shop or in a space, that you are kind of graduating to what the expectation is. You're kind of feeling the groove out a little bit more and finding a rhythm. If it's always you're going to be just knocked back down, knocked back down,
Yeah.
knocked back down, that is abusive. That is somebody lessening your shine. And there should be a pride, I think, of your mentor. Like, if you're not hearing, that's really great. I'm proud of you. You did that. If that doesn't come out ever, that's also telling, because I feel like
you can distinctly know the difference.
Yeah. Like,
There's
exactly.
you're smart enough to get an apprenticeship, which is hard already.
Yeah.
You're smart enough to recognize what is healthy and unhealthy in a relationship between mentor and apprentice.
Right.
Okay. And this is speaking to mentors as well who have had apprentices or have an apprentice currently. I'm speaking to you now as mentors. Like, apprentices, take a break. You've had your ears getting reamed out for the last hour and some change.
Right.
This is for mentors now. Okay. Understand mentors who have apprentices or are thinking about taking on an apprentice or have, anything. Okay. Understand that this little being, whether they're as old as you or 10 years younger than you or 20 years younger than you, this little being is looking at you like you're God. Like, you are the only result and reason that they are going to get anywhere. Okay. You are their shadow for the rest of their career. Every time they look in the mirror, every time they pull a line, it's you that is going to be in their reflection. So please understand that. And the next time you look at your apprentice, look at them in that manner. Be like, this little person I am responsible for. This little person I am guiding to put into a position to where they are going to have to deal with their own situations. And I know that they are going to be perfectly fine because I did everything for them.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you can't handle that pressure, which it is pressure, don't do it.
Yes.
It's okay. You don't have to have an apprentice.
Well, and I would say this too, is that there's a humility there within that, of that. So I don't feel like you need to know everything.
Yeah.
But I do think that you have to be willing to be vulnerable about what you do and don't know, and come off of that readily. And when you're in a place of like, oh shit, I don't really know that, let me hit you back.
Yeah.
And also understand
Be
that
honest.
pain that is not transformed is transmitted. And that was something that came up with me a lot, is that people would treat me the way that they were treated. And they would be like, well, in my apprenticeship, it would lose. And
so
I was
you're
like,
going to have to deal with this too. It's like, that's not.
Well, no, I was like, well, dude, did you like that when that was done to you? No, it fucking sucked. Okay. So why do you want to do that to another person? Like, seriously, why do you think that that's an okay thing to do to another human being? If you as a person saw no validity in it, thought it was abusive, thought it was awful, you really want to keep that abusive chain and cycle going?
Absolutely.
To the next generation of human? Do you think that's healthy? It's not.
Absolutely.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with some joshing, man. I'm fine with I like getting dirty. Like I said, I like grit. I like testing my boundaries. I like pressure. I like sweating a little bit, because there's an adventure there, there's an adrenaline spike, and it's nice, but it's only that way if I'm not being pushed beyond that. Yeah. And once you find that your own boundaries are being leveraged for somebody else's pleasure, because it really is that at that point, you're dealing with a more sadistic personality trait that needs to make you feel pain because of something they've experienced. Once it becomes in that realm, again, get out. Yeah, and same with anybody. If you're listening as a mentor, if you find a reflection in that, you really need to, I think you need to manage your own shit a little bit, or at the very least, maybe just find, I mean, I don't want to tell people what to do. I mean, you're going to be your style. There's a lot of sadist masochist relationships that I'm sure will work fine. I don't know. I don't want to choreograph it for you, but
absolutely. And I think it's something that I'm going to say last before I put my point on this, is that I want every mentor who has an apprentice right now to message or call their apprentice after this and thank them. Thank them for dealing with the clients, for cleaning their stations, for working as hard as they do, for showing up every day, because apprentices are hardworking and they want something that
Thank them if they're good.
Yeah, it's.
Don't thank them if they're not good.
Yeah, don't thank them.
Don't reward bad behavior.
If they're showing up late and they don't know how to scrub nothing, don't thank them. But if they are truly hardworking and you are a very hard mentor on them, please thank them, because it happen often, and I don't see it happen often enough that apprentices get some sort of, you know what, man, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, there's an art to critique too, right?
Absolutely.
Like, so you don't go into a critique with everything that's wrong.
Yes.
You usually start with, okay, I see where you're going here.
Yeah.
Here's a few really good things. Here's some room for improvement.
Absolutely. And I want it to be clear too, and this goes for the mentors who had just had apprentices and have graduated or maybe it didn't work out, still contact them and be like, you know what, man, like, I'm proud of you, of what you did. I'm sorry if it didn't work out, or if it did work out, great. Dude, I'm just happy. I'm happy that you decided to start this journey in tattooing in this wonderful industry that we get to share. And that's, at the end of the day, what it is. You're sharing an industry together. Why make their start of this beautiful industry absolutely painful and just ridiculing? Because that's not what this industry is about. And why show that to them in that way and then just never talk to them again?
And if you have anything more to add, mentor or apprentice, I just want you to know that both Kira and I, as we said earlier, we don't know everything.
No.
But we're passionate.
Yeah.
And we love this conversation. We love it. And we think it's a really valid conversation to have continually, progressively, throughout many different people, because everybody has different experiences to lend. So even if you find objection with something that we have to say, I would love an email.
Yeah.
The apprenticeship diaries at gmail.com. If you wanted to email me and engage something, if you really wanted to tell me off, please do it on my podcast. I'd love to have that. Like, I am totally fine with having a conversation. And that's the other thing about apprenticeship journeys. Anybody who's caged about them or anything, just know that it might open up a dialogue for something that I find it's like this, that if you leave a wound open, it can bleed out a lot longer and it'll take a lot longer to heal than if you confront it and you deal with the healing environment and you create a good healing environment for it. Just as a metaphor of what I'm talking about, a lot of the situations where we do burn bridges or if we break ties usually comes down to, I feel like, a matter of no closure. Yeah. One of the things that's great about having a communication and dialogue, and why I stress that as something that I feel like is essential for when you're moving into anything professionally, is that so much can be healed if you're willing to confront and have a dialogue. So confrontation is never comfortable. But I do feel like in this industry, particularly because of so many things that we have to juggle all the time. Sorry, I hate you. Confrontation is great, and it doesn't have to actually be seen as confrontation. So if you have a dialogue that you want to talk about and there is two sides to a story, I think that's great. Absolutely. I think that's awesome. I want to hear them all. I don't think one story is the story. There's so many stories. And that's what also the digital age has taught us, is that you got this person's perspective over here, this person's perspective over here, this person's from this country, this person's from this country. There's so many cultural things. It's all awesome. It's all about infusing ourselves with as much as we can and becoming worldly and helping each other grow and expand, rather than cast shame and say that's wrong. Absolutely. You know, there are better ways to go about things, I think, for sure. And a lot of that's about responsibility and about whether or not, like we're saying, when you want to bring it into a professional realm, it goes beyond you. Mm-hmm. If you want to keep your art for yourself, don't ever put it on the wall. Once you put it on the wall, then you're opening the door for somebody to have an opinion about it. So understand that. And understand that you can't be mad about what opinions you get once you put something on the wall, because at that point you're welcoming critique, you're welcoming that kind of influence in your life. And it's really important that you understand that about what you're calling to yourself. I think a big thing in the digital age right now is about optics and about what kind of brand do you want to be? What kind of story you want to, and that was the other thing that my apprentice had that was amazing. She had this tagline for herself. She's Loud Doodle. People know her as Loud Doodle. She had put like choreographed her being, everything about her has this similar feeling and vibe. And you could tell that she embraced every aspect of her life, her image, and she wanted it to reflect out from her. And it was a vibe that was really cool. You could catch it. I don't care what it is. You're into death metal, you're into like whatever. Make sure that the brand that you want to persist is the brand that you're cool with, people seeing, and that when it's mirrored back to you, you're happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's absolutely an excellent thing to say. But as far as, work ethic goes, and I'm going to be speaking as somebody who just left her apprenticeship. So I'm speaking to everybody born after 97. Like,
yeah, this is where you're going to default to.
So this is where I default to. This is everybody born after 97. I know that's like none of anybody. So so basically, like you got your apprenticeship, and that's like that's amazing. The best advice that I could give as far as surviving this apprenticeship, truthfully, nobody's gonna like it. Don't go out. Say goodbye to your social life for a little while. Get rid of your Snapchat, get rid of your Twitter, get rid of your Facebook, get rid of it. Focus on learning artistic value. Take seminars online. That's what I did. I took seminars with Marshall Vandruff and Proco, and I took online seminars on here with like Guy every Monday, and I do my own classes every Thursday. Constantly pumping out work, constantly just focusing on art. And friends would be like, hey man, where you been? I'd be like, I've been here the whole time. I mean, like, you can come hang out, but I'm still going to be right staring down here, and you can have conversations with me, and I'll be listening, but I'll be drawing the entire time. Never stop drawing. Never stop pumping out compositions. Never stop challenging yourself, and you will get through this apprenticeship perfectly fine. Listen to what your mentor is saying. Never argue with him when he's critiquing your work, okay? Because he's saying it from a third-party perspective, okay? Make friends with other artists, whether they're way ahead of you or not, whether they're way below you. Travel. Spend your own dime traveling to different shops to make relationships with other people so that they can teach you how they do it, because not one artist does the same thing as another artist. And after your apprenticeship, you're going to start doing things that your mentor did or didn't do, because that's just what's best for you. This is your artistic journey.
Yes.
This isn't your mentors. This isn't your friends. This isn't your family. This is your journey. Okay. Yep. So that's
great advice.
You need to sacrifice a lot, unfortunately, to do that. And you need to be focusing generally on your art all the time.
Yes.
Either because when you're tattooing, you're not drawing. And then when you come home, what do you have to do? Draw for the next day.
Yeah.
Or draw for the next project, or draw a flash.
Or do a consultation with the client.
Do a consultation. Like, your work does not stop.
No.
So once your apprenticeship starts, like, say goodbye to a lot of things and be okay with that. And unfortunately, I've lost a bunch of friends that just could not get on the same page as that. And I'm sorry, you're not worth losing this opportunity and losing my worth over this.
Right.
So, and because of that, now I have so many friends like Amy that are just as hardworking. And just last night, all we just sat in silence for a little bit and we just worked.
I know, it was really cool. We had like a total iPad party. It was great. And I was like, I even thought, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, God, it's so nice being in a room with somebody who's just doing work with me.
I'm just working.
I miss it. In a private studio, I miss it.
Yeah.
And by the way, that is not just for your generation. I think that's just good. Yeah. A good mentality when you're learning something anyway, is to absorb yourself in it. Because I come from a small business family, so
it's so easy to stare at your phone though for hours, because you're practically staring at your hand.
Well, and my apprentice even said it. She was like, comparison is the thief of joy. And it really is. And while you're immersing yourself in all the stuff that you are shaming yourself about that you're not doing, you could be doing. And so that is a thing to kind of mentally keep yourself in check, because when you're activated, when you're doing things, it's a hell of a lot easier to confront that self-sabotage monster. It's all about the hours you put in. And if you know you've put in X amount of hours, there's something about earning it. So just to give a for instance, the reason why that doesn't apply just to Kier's generation or, you know, whatever, is because it's kind of essential for any business, at least within the observance of multiple professions that I've now kind of talked to. These people hustled and hustled hard. They were obsessed beyond reason about what they wanted to do. And coming from a small business family, everything was laced back into our business because it's what provided for us. It was what we had to value in order to substantiate our survival as a family. So everything came back home. There wasn't a distinction between, you know, this place and that. When I would sit around the family table at dinner, we would be talking about the business, and that conversation was always there. And like Kier said, there was 3 years of my life that I did 80-hour weeks. And later, after I'd gotten my profession and I got rolling, I remember my friend coming back to me and she goes, God, I really didn't see you a lot at that point, but look at what you have. I'm so like, I wish I would have done more of that. I wish I would have cut a lot of fat out of other things and just walled myself in.
Up to, if anything.
Dude, people, and they're kind of like, and they then can see why you did all of that, and they don't take it as personally. And don't think that the friends that you said goodbye to won't come back. Absolutely. Just to let you know, they do come back. Absolutely. And they're really, really proud of you after that, because they're like, holy shit, dude, now I get why you did all those things. That's amazing. Yeah. And it also gives them an ability to see where they can do it too. Absolutely. And explore that. And then you can give something to them because you're coming from a place of abundance rather than a place of hunger and wanting. When you're hungry, you can't give anything. There's Absolutely. No excess.
And it's important to state that, you know, and I'll say it, but this isn't supposed to strew from telling all apprentices and all artists to, you know, kill themselves with work, because that's not the point.
No, you have to have boundaries. Definitely take a breather.
With apprenticeships, understand, and you know, if you're in that, this is for the slacker mentality, this is for the lazy mentality I'm speaking to. Understand that you may think that you're doing a good job or whatever the heck you're doing. Understand that there's an apprentice in the next shop over that's working 10 times as hard as you are. And then there's an apprentice next shop over to him that's working 10 times harder as him or her. And it just keeps going on and on. Like, there are always going to be harder working artists than you, always.
And the reverse.
Yes.
If you're in a shit shop, don't think there aren't better shops. So, you know, it goes in reverse too. Like, it's
just as how far are you willing to take yourself in your journey to get to your success?
Yes.
That's really all it ends up to. And should we get to questions?
Yeah, let's do a few questions.
All right. I guess now's the time to ask questions. So if you guys want to start like filling up the chat feed here with questions.
We had a few, right?
Yeah, I'm running through. So let me go to the YouTube one. We got Damon here. He says he likes my Bob's Burger tattoo. Listen, man, this tattoo gets pointed out more than any other tattoo. Like, nobody notices the burrito stick figure, but they notice Bob's Burgers.
I think it's because of the color dynamics. And also, you're wearing the same color shirt.
I am. That's Eternal's Bondo.
And this is that color too.
Yeah, we decided to match. But thank you very much, Damon. He asks, any thoughts on people paying thousands of dollars for an apprenticeship? Ooh. I never paid. I had a couple shops that wanted to charge me for an apprenticeship, but I thought that was just not like, it just didn't feel good. I was like, I don't know, man. How do you feel about it?
I have a really in-depth knowledge of that. So in the hair world, at the very least, we actually paid our apprentices, but we did a contract. So I'll go through a couple different ways of, I think you can do it.
Yeah.
It really comes down to you and how you feel. Because like you said, when you felt it out,
I felt it wasn't like they wanted to charge me like $3,000. Right. Like, it depends on the situation, truthfully.
So here's the thing. In hair, you have multiple things. I always look at what paradigms exist already in other professions. So in hair, they have schools, they have apprenticeships. In apprenticeships, it's twice as much time to get your license, and you work directly under somebody, and there's a lot more oversight from a board. Whereas when you go to an accredited school, it's up to, I think, like $13,000 or $14,000 in order to get your hair license. You get it in half the amount of time.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I feel like when you can pay for things, it can expedite you to where you want to go,
Absolutely.
maybe, but it really depends on who cares about the accreditation of the school that you
Yes.
go to, and whether or not within that bubble, that was the best way for you to learn something so that you're set up with the tools that you actually need. So it is kind of a weird question. So I'm kind of open to it. So in our profession, like my parents, they wrote up a contract that had a non-compete. If you do get it presented with a non-compete, check the mileage. It should never be anything like 30 miles, especially if you're in a saturated area.
That's what happened with my first shop.
Right.
That's kind of why I left that shop initially, was because after I think I was there for almost a year, and he presented me with a legal document that was notarized and everything.
Which shouldn't have happened for you to like sign without the notary there.
Right, ready? 18 years old that he was doing this. So I was 18 years old. He handed me this piece of paper that said that I had to work at
now
this
I can
shop
have you sign it now.
He had me work at this shop for 4 years. I had to work there for another 4 years. And then after that 4 years of working at that shop, I couldn't work within a 30-mile radius of that shop, which means I'd have to go out to Boston after just building clientele at that shop for 4 years. So I was like, yeah, dude, no, that's not happening. And he's like, well, if that's not happening, then you can't be here. I was like, okay, that's fine.
So this is how we did it at our hair salon. I think this is a really nice way to do it if you want to have a very nice in-depth, and especially if you have more of an employee kind of basis or status at your shop. So you do it this way. My parents crafted an agreement that basically said that you have to work for X amount of time. You have to submit X amount of hours per week towards your apprenticeship or education. You will be paid a minimum wage throughout that time. So they paid their apprentices. Here's the deal though. You were obligated, once you got your license, because it was a licensed profession, you were obligated to work for them for 3 years afterwards. If you left any time between, like, even if you didn't complete your apprenticeship, for example, they had a per week, like, fraction of a total cost. They basically said that your entire education was $13,000.
Yeah.
So they equivocated it to hair schools within that. So if you fulfilled the entire thing 3 years after you had gotten your apprenticeship over with license, and then you left and then you obeyed the non-compete, you were a free agent. You could go anywhere, whatever. You did owe time afterwards where you would stay and you would fulfill the need for somebody to want to teach you a craft.
Yeah.
So they would get their money out of you in both your work and everything. They're paying you a minimum wage. After that, it went to, you know, a pay scale that was more based upon the kind of clientele you brought in. Of course, your pay went up exponentially after you got your license and you were, kind of working as a person.
Yeah.
So that was in the hair world. So when I went for my second apprenticeship, my first apprenticeship, I was paid 30%, but like I said, I worked like 12 hours a week, or no, 12 hours a day. I got 30%. I did a lot of the work in the shop. I even drew stuff for other people. And then at the end, he slapped me with, oh, you're an independent contractor and you're not going to make but so much at this point. And I was like, whoa, I've been putting in 12-hour days here. Like, I have been super invested in this and I'm only getting paid what? And I'm an independent contractor? You didn't tell me that this was how I was going to have to file.
Absolutely.
So that didn't seem worth it to me at the end. So that's where that went askew.
Yeah.
Even though he paid me throughout it, I was like, dude, if I had known that, I would have gotten another job and I wouldn't have worked 12-hour days here. I would have worked 30-hour weeks here and had another job to substantiate my education here. And you wouldn't have had to pay me shit.
Absolutely.
So I think you can work it for money or for time. My boss, John, my second apprenticeship, he first, when it was proposed to me, said it's going to be, I think he said 2,500, 2,500 would be it. And he said, you know, that's going to go towards a lot of things that you're basically, I'm going to help you buy along the way, that is equipment that I'm not going to buy for you. And we'll go through all that, but I'm going to have to charge you for your education. I said, okay, well, it was right after, it was 2009. So it was right after the economic collapsed, the financial markets collapsed in real estate, and nobody was giving out loans. So I didn't have that money. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to see if I can get, you know, money. And I kept in contact with him. I got tattooed in the meantime. I was just getting whatever I could. And I was also working a whole other job and trying to, and I just kept up with him. And then eventually his shop had certain people leave. And then it became a thing where organizationally, he then needed a person to facilitate other jobs. So then he was like, hey, do you want to do it for time instead? Yeah. And you don't get paid, and you just shadow and you just work here and you learn what you can. And I was like, that I can do, that I can do right now.
All in all, like, you know, back to the main question, paying thousands of dollars for an apprenticeship kind of seems like a red flag, but it depends on the situation. Okay, if you're
get it in writing.
Yeah, if you're working, get it in writing. That's your entire apprenticeship. For me, get that in writing.
I would want to see. So with my apprenticeship, she didn't get paid during when I taught my apprentice.
Yeah, I didn't. I got maybe like $20 here and there for doing a good job. Like, I didn't really.
She did put in about 30 hours a week. So that was mostly what I expected, was at least 30 hours a week of, you know, time given to observe and dedicate yourself to this other craft, and then have another job to kind of buffer that. And then also I did have a curriculum for her. I did write up a curriculum so that she could kind of mark progression. Yeah. And it wiggled at times because, you know, things would come up that would tax it, but at least on the optics in the front, I was showing her what we would go through. So I feel like there should also be some kind of curriculum that they can kind of tell you the journey. They're not going to be able to tell you how long, because you're going to have to master each point of that curriculum before you move forward.
And don't get anything in writing. Like, don't sign a legal document unless you have like a lawyer or something.
Yeah, read it thoroughly. Especially if you're like
an 18-year-old. Like, please don't sign any sort of legal document.
Notarization should happen. FYI, I know this about knowing notaries. You cannot sign something after it's already been notarized. You're supposed to, as a notary, witness both signatures and then you notarize it. So if it's already notarized and your signature isn't on it, that's a huge fucking red flag. That's not even a good notary. So just so you guys know, you both go to a bank or some place where you find a notary. They witness you both signing the contract and then they notarize it. That is the progression of notarization. And definitely have a lawyer look over it.
So there's a question for you, Amy.
Yeah.
From Casey Lee.
Okay.
He says,
hi, Casey.
Did you find that the going through the barber apprenticeship helped you in reference to your second tattoo apprenticeship?
Yes, a lot. Oh, do you mean like teaching an apprentice at the time when I was? Okay, so I'll comment on both things. So being a barber apprenticeship twice, I did 2 barber apprenticeships. I actually have done 4 apprenticeships in my whole life, 2 in barbering and 2 in tattooing. Every single one was worth it, no matter how much I completed it or not and walked away. Within hair, it's so much more a regulated and choreographed profession where there is a lot more outside expectations of how it's done. So I feel like it gave me a framework of what to expect when going into something that was a little bit more Wild Westy. I feel like I was able to kind of stand behind the kind of framework that I could wrap myself around. And I also think it gave me a lot of value because I had a whole other profession, you know, like I had already reached a whole other profession via this avenue. And I understood what all aspects of that were from that kind of viewpoint, where it's a completely different way of learning than when you learn as in a school, because a school, there's like kind of a disconnect. Whereas if you're learning on site with the business that you're going to be working within, you learn what the business expects, you learn client relations, you learn about, you know, company ethics and mission statements and all of those things. And it's a lot more in depth, one-on-one with a person. So I think understanding what that felt like, and also knowing how to ask questions and how to deal with situations where, like, say I don't know what I'm doing. We were talking about this beforehand. If there was a haircut that I was intimidated to do, my mentor was right there. I would say to my client, hey, this is above my pay grade. I'm not really, I don't know how to do this. So rather than cut your hair and traumatize you and possibly myself, could we put a pin in this? Because the apprenticeship haircuts, just like the apprenticeship tattoos, were either free or heavily discounted. So this person is already submitting themselves to somebody else's education for a fraction of the price, and they kind of know what they're getting, or at least they should. So part of that means you might get a really dope haircut for very cheap, but you need more time in acquiring it. So we would either reschedule their appointment, or if my mentor was available, which happened to be my father, he would come over and he would instruct me through it as I went, point by point, or he would do it for me so that I could actually watch him do it. So that's the difference kind of it too, is that you have somebody directly under that you get to have questions with. Now, in terms of teaching somebody in hair, that gave me a forecast about who to pick as far as who you're going to mentor, because I feel like I expedited that too much. And this, I have to make this brief. He was a body that I thought that I could just teach hair to. He said he wanted to learn it, but I think he was just looking for a job. I didn't pick a person that really, really was passionate about doing what I did, and that fell flat on my face with that. You can't put information into an unwilling mind. It's just, it can't happen. So he just didn't care, and it was evident, and I had to cachet that. And so I learned a lot about who to pick. I don't know if that answers all your questions.
I have nothing to say because I don't do hair. Well, the only thing I'd say about hair is that I think everybody should go to like a professional hairdresser and talk about color theory.
Yes. Oh my God. It's so congruent. I will say that. It's the congruency of, like, you can't take pigment out. You can only put pigment in.
Complementary pigments, how to make other pigments, like how to take, like, color theory and hairstylist. Like, if you love color, go get your hair done and talk about color theory to a color specialist. It's amazing. So we have a couple here. Bruno says hi. Hi, Bruno.
Hi, Bruno.
You're the best, buddy. Happy almost birthday, bud.
Yay. Happy birthday.
It's his birthday's on the 1st.
Oh, right on.
Oh,
July,
yes.
baby. I love it.
All right. So we got here. This is a big question from Melissa. We may go over our 2:00 time, but I don't think anybody really cares. Okay. So I'll start this question off only because this pretty much does have to relate to the digital age now, but I'm sure you can talk of back.
Will there be time for you to talk to them for a sec? I have to pee real quick, guys. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
She's got the tiniest bladder.
Oh my God, it's terrible. But you can start it off and I'll wrap up.
All right. Well, at least hear the question first. So the question is, curious if you ladies have had a chance to talk to artists that went through a tattoo school versus an apprenticeship. Not sure what other states do the schooling. I know it's very few, but Oregon is one of those.
Noted.
Note that.
I've got a lot for that, but
yes,
I'll be back.
I do too.
Go for it. Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned with tattoo schooling, the degree or certificate that you get with the schooling does not guarantee you a license in many states. So like here in Massachusetts, it's a town by town basis. So that means that, like, here in my town, their rules are completely different to if you just went to the next town over, which is like 5 minutes. So they require completely different things as far as licensing, certificates, proof of apprenticeship of 3 years or more, written documentation from the health department. Like, those are all the things they require. if you have a certificate from a tattoo school in Oregon, they might not accept that if you want to go to a convention in other states. And at the same time, I it's but the opinion that I have on this is very biased because I don't feel like tattoo schools are helpful only because I'm ignorant and don't know what really entail on them at all. Did not go to art school at all. I was thinking about it. I was going to go to Montserrat Academy in Boston and Lime Academy in Connecticut, and I was also thinking about going to one in Rhode Island. I forgot the name of that one. But the only reason why I did not go was because I totaled it, and at the end of my 4 years, I would have been in debt $350,000, and that's just a lot for a 20-year-old. I'm sorry. So, and I realized that you can learn a lot of things from YouTube and reinventing. You don't necessarily need to go extradite yourself to a tattoo school or a art school or anything like that. Not saying that the people that are in art school are doing the wrong thing, because you may have great professors, you may be learning great things, touching on materials that I haven't even touched on. So that's amazing that you do that. I just have my own reasons for not doing it. I don't know if you have anything to say about tattoo school.
I do.
Go ahead.
I see them birthing. I see them birthing for a lot of the reasons that I'm exploring on the Apprenticeship Diaries. I think they're inevitable, mostly because more and more regulation is coming to states. And if you want a kind of a relationship between things, the regulation have a lot to do about coining tattoo schools. So if it's all about standardization. So what I would say is that I would be prepared, if you are going to a tattoo school, for you to have to do some form of an apprenticeship afterwards.
Yeah.
When you go into your profession, because they're only going to give you an observance of the laws and regulations that are involved there, and you're going to have a disconnect.
I don't know any teachers that are actually good, like tattooers.
Well, that's the other part of it, is that whereas in hair schools and in other colleges and things like that, you have accredited universities that have a draw, that are bringing in seasoned professionals that are teaching as well.
Is it the health department teaching how to tattoo, or
right? So that's kind of it. I will say that it's not going to be a bad use of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And if you want to get your foot in the door, there is a lot you're going to learn from a school. Like there is. And I see them up and coming. I do think that the first iterations of schools are usually really, really great, because there's a lot of passion, a lot of heart behind them, and they are sincere in wanting to bring out the best. I do find that over time, most things become about money, and they get a little too standard for their own good, and they lack a real touchstone with the actual profession over time. So you have to be very careful with that. And there's a reason why there is a pushback to schools in tattooing. It's mostly because we want to control the dynamic of our profession. We don't want other entities setting rules for us.
And there's no one way.
That we know. And once regulation comes in and law, like government devised law, it doesn't de-escalate from there. It only keeps escalating. And then you find yourself in a 9-to-5 with all these fucking rules, with all this control, and there's no art anymore. Yeah. And so I feel like it's better to, maybe if you wanted to have, and you can afford to pay for a school, get a foundation, get a foundation. If it's the access you have, that's fine. I wouldn't, just never benchmark anything. Never see that as well, just never see that as a reason why you should get anything. Yeah. Like if you go to a top tier university and there's 100 people in your graduating class, understand that you have 100 people that are going out into that market space that you're actively competing with for a job that equally have.
And if they all stay in Oregon.
Right. Exactly. They equally have the certificate that says they did blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And who the fuck actually looks at your grades? Like, do you ask your
They
doctor
just
about
look
their
at the piece of
grades?
paper, yeah.
They look at the piece of paper and they say, oh, you've done this, and so has 10 other people, you know, and I've
Yeah.
got, how do I choose between you?
And
Well,
I can't speak for myself either, but you never know when you go into a tattoo shop with a certificate that says I graduated from Tattoo University. They'll be like, what the fuck?
Right.
Okay, you're starting from square zero, actually.
I think that if you just have a really good, my mom always said it, it's a Zig Ziglar quote. It is not one's aptitude, but rather their attitude that determines one's altitude. And so have a good attitude, fall in love with learning, not what you learn. So if you're a kind of person who's just constantly asking questions, pushing the envelope, that's more of it to me. I have no objection to anything regarding, like, because I believe in free markets. I just do. I believe that people will, like, the cream of the crop will rise to the top. And I like that dynamic. So there are people who want their business to be about education and formulating schools. I think the good schools, the good educators will be the ones that dominate that.
Oh,
They'll earn that position.
Melissa said that unfortunately tattoo school is the first step in licensing here. Finding a
Yes.
mentor directly like an apprenticeship after is a lot tougher. Really? That's right. She said Oregon is pretty strict in regards to regulation. I personally feel it was more lacking in art instruction, but had spent 4 years in a graphic design degree prior to tattooing school.
Well, and that's the thing.
Interesting.
Well, see, licensure, and that's it. The piece of paper means something. And towards a person, and this is something that I'm kind of venturing into myself. Wouldn't necessarily do a school, but I like the idea of having course studies that I put out on YouTube or things like that, because if I, for example, become a kind of entity, which I can only dream about at this point, but I become a kind of entity where, say, my name gets out there and people go, oh, you took Amy Nicholls courses. Guy Acheson is that for us right now. He's
Absolutely.
like the buzz name that, oh, you know who Guy Acheson is and that you take his courses. Oh, cool. You've invested a certain amount of knowledge. It's the same thing with the licensure. If you're in a state that has licensure, for you to even get into the door for an apprenticeship, but that's just negating a lot of things that your mentor doesn't have to teach you. You've already been taught these fundamentals, and that's why I say a school's not bad. It's going to give you a foundation, at least it should.
Yeah.
Please expect that doesn't benchmark. I mean, the whole point of this whole thing that we're talking about is that there is no plateau.
Mm-hmm.
There should just be constant escalation. There's going to be like some,
yeah, you're definitely gonna go like this,
right? But it should be always up. And if it stops going up, you should probably not tattoo anymore, because the integral nature of what you're marking people with forever, that is a karmic kind of thing for me. And I feel like if you cannot be passionate about it, you shouldn't involve anybody else in it. Let's be real. So
yeah. So well,
that's my view about
it. And she did ask for our opinion, so it's definitely not like we're not professionals in that factor, but you know more than us.
And by the way, it's changed. I just want you to know that it has changed for me, because when I first started my apprenticeship, I wanted there to be tattoo schools because it was so fucking hard for me to get an apprenticeship. It was impossible. Like, there was no access. Like, it was a lot better for me than it was for the people that were years behind me. I mean, that was really impossible. There was no literature. There was no access. There was nothing. Like, you had to really be in the inner circle. I mean, I didn't even have a tattoo when I started tattooing, by the way, everybody. I wasn't tattooed, which, you know, there's waffling views on that too. But like, I wasn't in the tattoo culture. I was in the art culture, and I was pursuing a career as illustration. And then I pivoted and then said, I just want to get in the work market. I want to start working and making money. And I started seeing this disconnect between my school environment, this piece of paper, and how much it would actually yield to me what I wanted. And what I saw was it wasn't yielding what I was wanting. I was getting art jobs in school and having to turn them down because I had too much art homework.
Absolutely.
So what was the point? So I think you have to have that constant critical analysis of your own journey.
Absolutely. Once again, this is your art journey.
Yeah.
So clearly, Melissa, you had to go through things that we didn't have to go through, and we went through things that you didn't have to go through.
Right.
So it's all a different journey. But as far as opinion goes, like if you had to go through it, then unfortunately, like that's the case of it. But if I had the choice, I didn't go to art school, so I would not want to go to tattoo school either. So it's only because of the technological age and how you can learn so much stuff for free online or through reinventing or through, anything like that. But that kind of segments into, we'll make this our last question.
Yeah, you have to be okay with the hoops that you're jumping through. If they're too high and if they're too obscure or ridiculous to you, then clearly that's a measure of your tenacity on certain levels. Yeah. But I feel like you should never resent jumping hoops. Jumping hoops is necessary with everything. These things about regulation and licensure, they're walls. And I forget who did the speech, but walls are not created to keep people out. It's to benchmark tenacity, because you can climb over a wall. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's going to be a barrier for those who look at a wall and go, I don't like climbing. So just for that.
So we'll go on to our final question here. But,
yeah.
So there's two questions that are pretty similar. There's one on reinventing and one on YouTube. So I'll read them both, and then we'll kind of go over that because this is a pretty important subject. Charlie.
We got Katie's.
Okay, so Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
He's a regular here in Reinventing.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for your poster submission too. It was
absolutely
awesome.
I loved it. Kyle.
It was hard.
Yes.
It was really hard for us to make choices.
So he says, with all of the knowledge available, do you think it's worth teaching yourself about tattooing and machines if you're serious about being in the industry and you don't have any shop options around your area? And then Sarah says on YouTube, how do you feel about self-taught tattoo artists? Do you think self-taught tattooists will also need to anticipate an apprenticeship? And how do you feel about them in the industry? I'm going to say now, my mentor was self-taught. I have also friends with self-taught tattoo artists. It's not recommended, but sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes that's it. I don't want to say that go for it I don't want to say that because that's not a thing that should be said. But as far as how do I feel about them, they're artists just like I am. Just because I went through an apprenticeship and they didn't doesn't mean that I'm more or less than they are. I actually take much more pride and respect into them because they're so self-taught and they've got themselves at such a level all by themselves without any guidance whatsoever other than their own failures. So, but I know it's tough, and I can't speak from that, but I know it's tough for people who live in the middle of nowhere, who have one shop in town, and it's not great.
I would say, okay, so part of my philosophy of things is not being married to a lot of things. I feel like having kind of a liquid philosophy of things of where you become the water and you
be like water,
right? Like you shift the space that you're in. So in a way, when you don't have a lot of access, I feel like you have to be willing to put yourself in alignment with the access. So if you're not willing to go to where you can find the things you need to, that might say something about the walls that are actually presented to you. Yeah. Or I got a tattoo kit.
Yeah, I did too.
I did. I tattooed my friends in my house, but I tattooed my friends, and it was only people that I would ever welcome into my home. There's a lot of precarious things that come about when you let people into your space and you're not being walked through something by a guiding eye, because it's for your protection as much as it is anything. So don't ever think that it's just about us shitting on you because you're passionate, you're trying to learn something.
It's just better guiding you.
It's a worrying thing too. It's a worry that somebody's going to come in your home and take advantage of you in a way that's not appropriate.
Absolutely.
And then feeling that way and not knowing how to handle that situation, not feeling what your rights are, or anything like that. And, it's everything, like putting things in the skin, just having somebody there that can stop you before you really go too far in something is really good. So, and even if you self-teach, even if you open up a shop in your area, even if you get going and you have your clientele.
Don't self-teach in your own bedroom though.
Well, I mean, but even if that is your story and it escalates to that point, understand that that's not the epitome of awesome.
Yeah.
Just because you're making money, just because you're a small, big fish in a small pond, that's all you are. You should test yourself with other waters.
Yeah.
Always. And want to be a part of bigger ponds so that you can see how awesome you are within any context.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Just be smart and be healthy and be, think of cleanliness.
Think.
Because like I bought one too, but I was more like playing with the machines, not tattooing people. I think the only people I tattoo were people's fingers, and I still felt like super uncomfortable tattooing in a setting that I knew I wasn't supposed to.
Right.
So I think, and like I said, my mentor was self-taught. He didn't have a mentor, and one of my very good friends is self-taught and like one of the greatest artists I've ever met. So there's nothing negative to be said about these artists, but it's more of just the egotistical side. Like, how proud are you that you tattooed out of your bedroom and are going to stay there, nowhere else? Like, I'm fine staying here, not progressing.
Plus, I'm sorry, but I don't believe anybody's self-made. I think that we're all coming with different points of influence and accessibility, and what we do with them is what we do with them. But unless you're completely a hermit out in the middle of nowhere, picking like thorns off of things and crafting your own ink and dipping it in, and then I don't know, skinning cats and sitting there and like tapping it in.
Like Monday malarkey shit.
You're not fucking self-taught, okay? You have influence, you have people around you. None of us are. And with the digital age, please ask questions.
And don't post that on Instagram.
No, don't do that.
Don't act like you leg on like a basket that's turned upside down.
Not if you have any hope of
making it in this industry.
Well, having an easy start, being accepted by people who are in the industry, because it's just kind of a blasphemous thing.
They'll come at you hard.
Yeah, they're not gonna find that cute. It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
If you do have no choice but to self-teach, but I want like valiant effort. Like I want like going to every single shop, meeting almost every single artist. And if they all say no and you have no choice whatsoever, you really want to do this, you're getting older, your job is like shitty.
Get a subscription to Reinventing the Tattoo.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Right.
Get a subscription to Reinventing the Tattoo.
It's worth it.
Because, oh my Lord, the content on there, the Canon alone.
It's not thousands of dollars either.
No, it's less than $1 a day. And like, get a subscription there, read the Canon. He has many videos, exercises. I teach a class. She has a podcast. Like, Guy Ashton teaches a class every Monday where he can help your drawing skills. There's 2 drawing groups, 3 now. Ricardo just started his today. Jason Lacer does his on Sundays.
There's the Tattoo Collector, which is another
tattoo collecting podcast.
Right.
Like, I could keep going.
Right.
Like, there's just Ancient Americans, like everything.
This app, which is free, puts you in contact with a social group of really legit artists. With us, but with you, so you can ask questions.
And we're not going to be assholes.
I'm not.
I mean,
I can't say.
I mean, we're
anybody else, but I'm not.
We're assholes, but we're not douchebags. Okay.
Right.
There's a fine difference.
Right.
So like, even if you are like scratching out of your house and like post something that's completely torn up, like, we're still going to be like, okay, this is how you can do this better. Maybe not.
I will make you work for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to give you the answers. I will make you work for the questions that you ask, because I feel like that's a part of it. But I'm not going to be a dick. It might feel that way because, it's hard enough to ask a question, but I'm going to make you work for the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Colty 1992 on here on YouTube. He says, these are all great insights. It's helping me navigate the future of my apprenticeship or art journey. Cutting out aspects of personal life hit home. I have more of a hunger for learning than people. Not all people, because I realize this job involves people skills, but I'd rather be around people who understand the industry, have a love for art. So thank you both for all the insights.
Oh,
Well, of course,
welcome.
man.
Thank you.
That's why we did this, because I was getting messages left and right about how to get an apprenticeship. And I was like, you know what, man, like I'll just say it out and about. And the big quote is, it depends. It all depends.
That is a big thing. It
It
all
depends.
depends. And just so you know, I feel like if you care about something, you give it to someone else. So it's
Yes.
about legacy. It's about caring about a profession. And, you know, again, going back to who is earnest, who isn't, I think the earnest people are people who are very passionate about, you know, guiding the next generation into the future. So that means the world to us, because I too, like, there's a saturation point of just how many people I can actually coach individually. So if this can help people at mass, at least direct you to finding your perfect mentor or situation,
Or
blessings on blessings.
absolutely,
So awesome.
or even just the motivation to continue to get yourself mentally on the right
Yeah.
path. And Casey says here, that's why it's so awesome about reinventing. What reinventing is doing, bringing all the artists together for education from all over the world.
Yep.
Back in the day, this just wasn't possible.
Yep.
And absolutely, like alone in these since January of being licensed, I've been to Illinois, Philadelphia. I'm going to Florida next month. I'm going to all these conventions solely from reinventing the tattoo. I made all these connections, and I didn't even get reinventing to get these connections. I solely got reinventing just for the canon. That's it.
And I could have done this live from my house, but I decided to, like, you know, that's the other thing I will say about the digital age. Know when to put it down, de-escalate, put your fucking feet in some grass, make a real deal connection, because that's what Kira's also done, is that she didn't just benchmark it about her digital access. She went and she met people. She's communed with the people that she's met through reinventing and stuff. So, you know, having that touch point is really, really good. And it's part of what you should love about
it's part
it.
of your education.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to be better than you were yesterday.
Right. Well, and in any business, networking that's it. That's what business is. It's like a heightened understanding of networking and, you know, client relationships, everything. Like, and that goes back to our thing about like friendships and stuff like that. I do feel that you attract the kind of people that you're going to be around, and you create this friend group that is so enriched with the kind of things that you want. And it's coming from a place where you can truly love on people. So while you're existing outside of your integrity or things that feel wrong for your groove, you might find that you don't really like people, but when you're in your groove and your step and you're doing things, everybody who gets filtered through that is the kind of people you want to be around. They are. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Well, let's wrap this up with
Yeah.
final statements. I guess my final statement would be like, it's your apprenticeship is not forever. This is just a blink in time. So just remember what your end goal is. Remember who you are as an artist. And lastly, if your question every single day is, when am I going to find my style? It's going to happen with time. There's a perfect thing that my mentor said, that was when I was learning my basic fundamentals and I couldn't even draw a stick figure. I'd say every day, when am I going to be just as good as you? And he said, you know what, man, you're going to wake up one day and you're just going to be able to do it. I'm like, that's it. So, and he's absolutely right. Okay. I don't like admitting it. He's absolutely right. One day, 3 years later, I woke up and I was just going, confidence and all, just going.
Yeah.
So just bear with yourself, be kind to yourself, and keep learning. Never stop learning, and get a Reinventing the Tattoo subscription, because that's going to change your life.
To parry off of that, I feel like people see a style in my work, but I don't really know my style. And I think that it should never be a goal to necessarily have a style. Style is a lot about how to brand yourself. And whilst that might be good, for me, as long as you're making money and you're doing the thing that you aim to do and you're able to substantiate your life to keep doing it, just keep doing it and keep yourself fresh and exploring things. You might stay on something for a little bit and camp there for a while. And maybe it is so much that you get coined into a style. But I would say, fall in love with the journey. Happiness is not a fixed point. It's in the rhythm of resubmitting yourself to the suck and seeing what you're made of and walking into your fears.
Yeah, you're gonna fail like all the time. Please
Yeah,
be okay
or at
with
least you're gonna feel like that.
Yeah,
And I wanted to thank everybody.
absolutely.
Thank you for being here. We have culminated to all of this for months. Thank you to Angie. You can find her at Angie Does Art. Please follow her. She's an amazing talent. She's a lovely human being. She's very sweet and kind. I mean, at least that's what I've gathered from her. We only know each other digitally right now. But she's an amazing talent. And thank you to all the other poster entries as well.
Absolutely.
Your
You guys were
hustle was
awesome.
noted. It was really hard to pick between you. And I think you all have a future in this. I mean, you're already showing so much tenacity towards what you want to do that we see you. That was the point, was to give you an ability to be seen by people and
We're
get
looking
some.
out for you.
Yeah, dude, like we're excited
We're
about
looking
your
out for you.
future. So we can't wait to see it. I can't wait to say, for most of you, I know I'm going to be able to say, I knew that person when. So it's so exciting.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Reinventing the Tattoo. Thank you to Guy, Gabe, Lauren.
Yes,
Sandy
thank you
for bearing with us through all of this. Thank
Almost
you
forgot.
to the whole community. I want to thank the Horsemen, Jason, Ricardo, Larry, Bruno. Thank you guys so much for giving me the confidence to do something like this. I'll see you guys soon. I think that's kind of it. Like, that's that. Where can people find you?
Oh, well, anywhere it's the podcast, anywhere where you listen to podcasts, we're pretty much streaming on all of those facets. It's the Apprenticeship Diaries. The Instagram is _apprenticeship_diaries. To follow us, we do look at more than just two tattoo artists, but it's professional journeys and beginnings. Me personally, you can find my art at A Nicholls Tattoos, and that's anicholstattoos.com if you would like to get in contact if you're interested in getting a tattoo from me.
Where are you tattooing out of?
Oh, private studio. Thank you. It's called Beyond the Pale Art Studio. This is my baby. It's just a private little studio right now. It's in Eldersburg, Maryland, if I can say it. I'm also a licensed tattoo artist in Rhode Island, and I frequent there often, and I go guest spot at my friend shop, Evan Olin in Powerline. But I hope to do more. I want to circuit more, but just so everybody knows, Maryland is not regulated right now in tattooing, but I am licensed and regulated at some point under another state. So I have gone through all those things. So just so everybody knows, if that matters to you.
Yeah. And you can find me on Instagram, Frankie Says Things.
Yes.
Pretty sure I'm on Reinventing as Frankie Tattoos Things. I teach a class every Thursday. I did miss last week's. Unfortunately, I did have other obligations I did have to do last minute. But this week we are working on our final for our first segment that we've been doing of shapes and forms. We're going to be working on construction and shape relationships, which is very important. We're going to be putting the cube, sphere, and cylinder all in one mesh and understanding how you can look at the world through that.
Awesome.
So we'll be doing that. And I tattoo out of Western Massachusetts. If anybody wants a cool tattoo, let me know. Hit me up, DM me, all that fun stuff. I love doing color and cartoons.
One more place. It's a new frontier for me, so I'm sorry I didn't enter it. But if you're on Clubhouse, find me. I'm on Clubhouse. It's A Nicholls Tattoo, not tattoos. Follow me there. I'll probably follow you back. I do regular rooms there. Some are based off of the podcast. Some are just based off of my idea of my studio. But if you want to talk to me, it's really not that hard. I love talking.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if it's apparent, but.
And you can also find me at the conventions that are happening. My first convention, Battlefield Expo, July 11th and 12th, I believe. Don't get mad at me, Jason. And I'll be at the Philly convention. I don't remember when that is, but that's coming up soon.
Google it. It'll be fine. Just Google it.
And then I'll be in Brussels in Belgium in November. That'll be super fun. That'll be the whole crew coming together. So check us out there. Also, for the Reinventing the Crew or any tattoo artists in general, I will be up at Jiminy Peak October 3rd through the 6th.
Yes.
And
Me too.
Amy will be there too. A lot of the reinvention crew will be there. If anybody wants some spots, I think a couple are open. I think we
Yes.
just have to reserve a room, and that means
Yeah.
that you're in. It's BYOB. Bring your own booze,
Brain.
brains, berries, I guess, which
Things.
is the funny one.
Yeah.
We're just gonna be
Berries.
hanging out, and if you want to learn different artistic things, then absolutely.
It's a great group of people. It's always been awesome, and
Changed
Jiminy
my
Peak
life.
is awesome.
Changed my life.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much. And then we